How do I know if the market is too saturated to bring a new private label product to Amazon? What are some of the key factors that I can look at to help me make this decision? We'll answer these questions and more in this episode of the Amazon Seller Podcast.
This is the Amazon Seller Podcast, hosted by multi-million-dollar Amazon sellers helping you launch your private label business to the next level. Find us on amazingfreedom.com or subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and YouTube.
All right, thanks for checking out another episode of the Amazon Seller Podcast. You can check out all of our past episodes by visiting amazingfreedom.com or by visiting our page on iTunes. Hey, are you looking for an awesome way to get started building your private label business? Or are you looking to ramp up your current private label business? Well, now you can with our new free Smart private label course. We put together this free course as a valuable resource to our followers as a way to help you get started and really capture those fundamental private label basics that can be easy to miss. So visit amazingfreedom.com/smart to register for the Smart Private Label course. You're definitely going to want to check that out. All right, today we're going to be talking about a topic that I think is just so important, because if you don't get this topic or don't understand this concept well, it's really hard to find success with private label. So today we're going to talk about market saturation, trying to determine if your private label product or idea is just too saturated and you're going to run into trouble with competition. So Andy, why don't you start us off talking about this topic? This is something that I know you've talked to your course members a lot about because it's a topic that you're passionate about, because people that kind of don't listen to your advice on this are prone to fail, right? So why don't you tell us, first of all, just what do you look for when you're bringing a new product to the Amazon marketplace?
Sure. So there's really two things that you have to look at, and you have to be very vigilant as you're looking for your products. The first thing is customer demand, right? So you have to know that customers want your product. And thankfully, Amazon gives us great data so we can find that out. The second thing, and this is the area where unfortunately I see the majority of new private label sellers, they get wrecked in, is they pick a product that is oversaturated. And so if they pick that product and there's too many offers on Amazon, they're not going to be able to get their product ranked. And that's when they end up losing. In fact, I was at a conference 3 or 4 months ago, and I probably get a message like this at least 2 or 3 times a week. And the gentleman came up to me very discouraged. He had spent $8,000 on a product. Had launched it, had sent it into Amazon FBA, and basically the product was just sitting there and he wasn't getting any sales. And so typically I know that that's going to be a product that's too saturated. So I asked him what it was, and it was a salad spinner. And so if you look up on Amazon salad spinner, you'll see there's probably about 50 listings, all the exact same. The only thing different is the brand or the logo that's actually on that salad spinner. So he didn't do his due diligence, and he picked a product that was oversaturated, and that's how you get in trouble.
And that's so true, right? I think most of us have talked to someone before that's been a little bit frustrated with the private label process, right? You might even hear them say that they don't think building a private label brand works. And a lot of times it's because they have had a similar experience to that gentleman that you met at the conference. They've brought a product to the market that's just extremely saturated. And then in their mind, their view of private label or building a brand is kind of warped, right, to a negative perspective. So that's definitely frustrating to hear, or well, to experience, but also to hear, right? As someone that teaches private label, you, Andy, it's kind of frustrating to hear because there's really so many product opportunities out there. It's kind of frustrating when you hear someone pick a product where there's already maybe hundreds of listings on Amazon, right?
Yeah, I mean, Nate, that's the great thing about our course, I think, that we actually, when members join our course, we'll help them evaluate potential products. And so literally, I think we've probably saved people thousands of dollars by helping them understand that product is either too saturated or there's not enough customer demand. Because this is the type of thing, again, when folks just jump in, and Amazon is a powerful platform, but when folks just jump in and don't understand that, then a lot of times that's when they get in trouble.
Yeah, and we go through those reviews every single week, right? We spend time looking through people's potential ideas, and that's probably one of the biggest reasons we tell people not to move forward with an idea is we just say, hey, it looks too competitive, right? And so we have a lot of people come back to us and say, you know what, I was kind of thinking that as well, but thank you. I appreciate your feedback on it. It saves me a lot of time and money going forward. So yeah, that's just, I mean, it's so important as you're going through your research to look at that factor.
Absolutely.
Now, Liran, so as we're getting into this, and you know, even people who have gone through private label training and are starting to research, it still can be kind of tricky to know what is actually too much competition, right? Even and the reason is because every product is different, right? There's not really a blanket statement or rule that we can give that says if X is, you know, happening, that means that the product is too saturated or you shouldn't go for it. It's not really as easy to say that, but there are some key metrics that you can look at, right, that make your decision-making process a little easier. Can you go through a couple of those, what you personally look for when you're trying to determine if a product is too saturated?
Sure. So, you know, the first thing that I ask myself really when I look at any potential product or product idea is I first sort of just ask myself some common sense questions before really delving deep into any sort of data on Amazon. So one of the questions I ask myself is, what's the value that my product is bringing to the marketplace? Because the question is, why would somebody buy from me, right? So one of the things that I look at is how many, you know, when I do a search for my main keyword, and that's one of the things that you need to really figure out what keyword you're targeting. That's sort of critical to first deciding whether that keyword is too saturated. But what I look at is Amazon results. Is there one page of results for similar products, and then, you know, the second and third pages already shows, you know, sort of different types of products, or are there 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you know, 10 pages of the same product on Amazon? If I see 10 pages of the same product on Amazon, that's, you know, immediately a red flag. And again, you know, unless I have a really good answer for what I'm bringing that's different to that product, then I'm not going to touch that product, because if I'm not doing anything other than just putting a logo on the product, then I'm not gonna import that product. Now, if there was only, you know, 5 results on Amazon and a good amount of search volume for that keyword, then potentially I could just put a logo on a product and still get sales, because ultimately it's a question of supply and demand. Is there more demand than the available listings on Amazon, or is there way more supply available than the demand? And that sort of brings me to looking at something else. So you want to look at sort of a price trend history of the product. So if you download, there's a free extension. A lot of people probably listening already use it, from Keepa.com, that you can download on Chrome and add to your Amazon pages, which will show you a price history for the product. And so if you're seeing sort of a downward trend among the competition, then there's only one reason why they're lowering the price, and that's because they're not getting sales at the current price. And the reason they're not getting sales at the current price is because there's too much competition. And so that's definitely something that you want to look at, just to see what is the price trend history. Are prices staying the same? Are they going up? Are they going down? If you see a lot of downward trend, then you want to avoid that product. So those are two things that you can kind of look at immediately. The next thing that I look at is I want to look at the reviews. So again, it's figuring out what is the main keyword for my item that people are searching and putting into Amazon. It's not how you found the product, it's how other people found the product. And so I want to look at the first page of results on Amazon and see what the reviews look like. So why do I even care about what reviews look like? Because if I come in with a new product and my first month I get 5 or 10 reviews, then how does my product look surrounded by other products? Do other sellers have, 20 and 30 reviews? where the comparison to 5 is not that big, or is everybody else around me with 3, 4, 500 reviews? So I look for that. If the majority of the sellers on the first page have several hundred reviews, that might be something to shy away from. Or if the top 3 reviews all have, like 1,000 plus, again, something I'm gonna shy away from. There's a few more things that we can look at. So if you use Jungle Scout extension, we'll have a link in the show notes if you don't have it. You want to look at who's generating the sales for the product. So again, if you look at the first page with the Jungle Scout extension, are a lot of the sellers on the first page selling well, or are the sales going to the top few listings? Again, what that would indicate to me is that people are clicking on the first few listings and not going beyond that, because either the first few listings are really good, they have a lot of reviews, good pricing, good images, good listings. So you want to sort of look at the listing quality for the competition. Can you come in and really do better than what the competition is doing as far as listing quality, images, etc.? Or, are the top listings already, or, a lot of the listings on the first page already really, really good? So these are a lot of things that we look at. I know, Andy, one of the things you've spoken about is looking at sponsored ads.
Leron, before we go to that real quick, because you just gave us a lot of information, I want to dive into it a little bit deeper with some of them. First off, one of the most common things, and the thing that I think you mentioned first, was how many similar products are already on Amazon, right? Is there just like a couple, like 5, like you mentioned, or are there pages and pages and pages of a very similar product that just has a different logo or brand name? So one of the things, besides just how many actual products are, and you mentioned this, was the supply versus demand factor, right? So let's just take a little bit deeper look at that. Just because a product only has a few listings doesn't necessarily mean that there's not a lot of competition if there isn't enough supply there, right? So if there's not enough customers searching for that product, even if there's only 4 or 5 similar products, there might not be enough room to come in just because there's not enough competition, right? Or not enough demand, right?
Right, exactly. So, we've looked at, so I'll give you an example. So somebody recently came to me and asked me about a product, and talk about the product here. So the product was a wine holder, and it's like this, it looks like a woman's sort of heel or shoe, and it holds a bottle of wine. So it's kind of like a decorative thing. And somebody approached me and asked me, is that a good product to import? And so first of all, I saw on the first page, it was, there's a bunch of listings on Amazon already. But what I saw when I pulled up Jungle Scout was that really none of the sellers on the first page for, I think it was like heel bottle holder or something, or wine holder was the keyword. None of the sellers on the first page were selling more than, $1,000 a month in sales. So when I look at that, I say there's just not enough people looking for this product, at least not for that keyword, which I just typed in thinking that's the main keyword. I didn't do a tremendous amount of research on it, but you can look at that and say, so even if that product maybe had, not a lot of listings, I might say I still wouldn't do it, because nobody is really getting a lot of sales. So yeah, if you're looking for something that's so niche or just doesn't have a lot of people looking for it, even if there's 1 or 2 listings, it just may not be, a good product to import, because people are just not looking to buy that product on Amazon. We've seen things like that also, where, for example, some industrial or business type items that maybe the business community is not yet buying on Amazon. They're buying more through catalogs or other sources. For example, we looked at a product this week that just didn't have the customer demand. And again, there's various reasons why, but those are products that I wouldn't go into when there's just not enough sales from the existing sellers on Amazon.
All right, yeah. And something else that you mentioned I think is just so important is that you need to really determine what the keywords are that you're trying to rank for, right? You mentioned that. And I think that's just important to go over here a little bit more, because we see a lot of people who kind of miss this concept and don't really do enough research to look into what they're trying to rank for. And the reason this is important is because you might misjudge the amount of competition if you're not looking for the right keyword, right? So again, we looked at a product recently where someone told us that they were trying to rank for a specific keyword. However, once we looked at the product, we really determined that most of the customer searches were probably coming from a different search term, and that's why there was demand there. And so they probably would have been, kind of led astray, or they would have analyzed the data wrong if they would have went after that original keyword. So an example here is if you're going to private label barbecue gloves and you think that your main keyword that you're trying to go for actually is fire resistant gloves, you might type in fire resistant gloves on Amazon and there might not be a ton of similar products, right? Let's just say, for example, there's only 1 or 2 pages. And so you think to yourself, wow, there's really not that much competition, but it looks like the ones on here are doing well. There must be customer demand. However, if you completely miss that what they're actually ranking for is barbecue gloves, and then in that case, there's 10, 20, 30 pages of listings on Amazon, you might just be missing that. So I think that's why looking at the right keyword is so important as well.
Yeah, and we could talk a little bit about that. The main way to really figure out what is my main keyword is not really by guessing, but by looking at data. So using the various tools out there to look at search volume, and we know that search volume is not necessarily an absolute or correct among the tools, but generally as a relative in relative terms, they are correct. So if you see one keyword has 10,000 searches a month and the other one has 5,000, then we know that the 10,000, 5,000 may not be accurate, but probably it's better to go with the one that's showing 10,000. In relative terms, it's getting more searches. And you can also look at places like Google Keyword Planner or other tools that show you search volume to kind of put in what you think as far as what is the main keyword, and then sort of have the data give you back what the main keyword is. And then look at your competition and see, if they're using those same keywords in the title, then that probably is your main keyword. And that's really the first step in determining in any private label product research. The first step is really figuring out what is my main keyword, and then everything else is really based off of that.
Awesome. So we looked at, the number of comparable listings that are on Amazon, price trends, right, to see if the price is going up, staying the same, or going down. We talked about, the number of reviews that are on some of the competing listings already. Andy, Liran already mentioned this. You also look at data involved with sponsored ads. Can you kind of just talk about that with us for a little bit?
Sure. So if you're on the listing page, you're looking at the product that you might be thinking about private labeling. You scroll down, you'll see other related products that are using Amazon sponsored ads, and this can kind of give you an indication of how much competition you have. If when you scroll down there and you hit next page, if there's like 10 pages of similar products that are all using Amazon sponsored ads, then that's going to give you an idea of the type of competition you're going to have to compete with to get at a good place in search. A lot of people don't do that.
And the key is that when you're looking at those sponsored products related to this, is that the sponsored products are very similar, right? So sometimes you'll look at those sponsored products and there'll be a couple pages of them, but they don't really relate exactly to the product that you're looking for, that main keyword like we were just talking about. They'll be maybe a little bit related, but definitely not the same product. And in that case, that's okay, right? It's not necessarily the same thing. But when you see sponsored products and they all look very similar, it's basically the same product that a customer would be searching for. Maybe just the logo's different or the color. That's kind of when you're trying to determine if that's too much competition, right?
Exactly. And let's step back, and to a lot of people, with these type of products, they're Me Too type products, like the salad spinner. Now, the first sellers who brought salad spinners to Amazon, they have done really well. And generally their price is going to be a lot higher. They're going to be at that, number 1, number 2, number 3 position in search. And if you're the first to market with these trendy type items that are simple products, generally you can do well. And that's how a lot of people get faked out, because they'll see, like the sellers who are at that number 1, 2, and 3 spot with all really good margins. And so they think to themselves, oh man, you know what? I know I can get this easy on Alibaba and I'm going to, be able to have this type of margin. But what they don't realize is that now there's 50 other sellers that are selling it for half of what those top sellers are. And then that's how they end up getting wrecked. And so just remember, if you're trying to bring a product that is simple, that doesn't take a lot of creativity and has been on the marketplace for a while. And again, you can see that track the overall price. There's some tools where you can track the overall price of a salad spinner. And you'll see when it first hit the market, maybe it was selling for $30. And now the overall average price is $15. So that should give you an indication right there to run away from that product.
And I think, again, one of the most common things that we tell our course members that bring us product ideas, one of the most common suggestions we'll give them is this: if it looks like a decent product, we'll say, okay, this looks decent, but what can you do to differentiate your product? Or maybe can you bundle it with another product that customers would find complementary and would go together well? What can you do to make your product stand out? And really, those are just suggestions that we give to try to make it so that your product stands out, and maybe you can crack some of those top listings that are already on there. So that's all really great advice. Again, just to recap what we looked at, when you're first trying to go in and determine if your products are too saturated, we recommend that you look at the number of comparable listings, that you look at price trends like Andy just mentioned, you look at the number of reviews that are on the top listings. And like Andy just mentioned, some of those listings that come in first, if they're first to market, then typically they'll have a lot of reviews over time just because they've been selling so well. So that might be an indication that it might be tough to get in and compete with them. And then also look at the number of sponsored ads that are similar to the product you're looking at and what the competition might be like, or the cost per click of trying to get in on those sponsored ads. All right, well, I think that gives us a good look at some of the key indicators to watch out for when doing private label research and determining market saturation. So that's going to wrap it up for today. Hey, do you have a question that you would like us to answer on a future podcast? Make sure you go to amazingfreedom.com/ask and you can submit a question that we might answer on a future show. And also, don't forget to check out the Smart Private Label course that you can get signed up for now for free at amazingfreedom.com/smart. We will see you next time.
You've been listening to the Amazon Seller Podcast. Make sure to subscribe and join us next time for another look at how to dominate the Amazon marketplace.